we will start with a quick roundtable to get to know us a little bit, and then we will run to the questions. So, hey, my name is Kata. I'm based in Romania. I'm the technical and team lead for the conversational AI team, and basically I'm from Ion side, and we are the central team for creating chatbot and voice bots for the different business units from Ion side. So Ion has more than 100 subsidiaries, and basically we are building for them these use cases. And from use cases that we built so far, more are our meter reading process, because we are the Ion energy company, but we're having also HR processes, for example, or smart routing, basically to know exactly who the customer is and then route the customer to a specific group of agents or to a specific bot directly. And also some other use cases, and that's mostly it from my side. Now I'll hand over to Halvard.
Thank you. So my name is Halvard Totland. I'm the Chief Customer Officer of Boost AI, and that's a conversational AI vendor based out of the Nordics. And we're mainly focused on the service center space. So that's within FSI, that's within telcos, public organizations, etc. Mainly any organization with large service centers. So that's going to be my angle into the debate as well. The service center space, meaning a focus on automation, on customer experience, and also what can be done to drive up sales.
Hi, I'm Ben Hazel. I'm a senior chatbot conversation designer at Admiral Group, and so I kind of head up the conversation design team within Admiral for our chatbot technologies, and I suppose my get into this debate, I suppose, is the fact that I can speak from experiences of how we measure conversational AI and how we think it's going and things like that. And
Hello everyone, my name is Richard. I'm a senior research fellow at Sheffield Hallam University. I suppose my background is in social research, but in the last 5 years I've kind of combined that with conversational AI research. Mainly what I do is apply research with existing theories and domain knowledge to create novel chatbots. So some of the projects we're involved in are cancer prehabilitation chatbot with Royal Marsden Hospital. We're also creating a chatbot to help young people overcome barriers to physical activity. And we're also helping people with genetic conditions to have difficult conversations around their particular genetic condition to get the support they need. I've also got a background in evaluating national programmes, so worked on behalf of the Premier League, Rugby Football Union to evaluate national programmes, and I'll be using that knowledge to the conversation today.
Okay. Thank you. And then let's go through the questions. Can customer touchpoint be an indication of success of a virtual agent? Halvard, what do you think about this?
So the way I interpret customer touchpoint is related to usage volumes and interactions from, for example, customers or other end users. And I think any conversational AI project should use that as a KPI. But I would also argue that in isolation, I think the KPI is almost useless. And the reason why I have this stance is because it's in a way a matter or a measure of how much impact you get, and whether that impact is positive or not should be sort of the first step. So I would rather start with what do we want to achieve here? Like, do we want to achieve automation? Do we want to create better user experiences somehow? What do we link that towards? Is it that we want to shorten down the average waiting times? Is it that we want to see a certain level of automation in the incoming inquiries? Do we want to get a certain type of level of feedback from the customers? Like, for example, you want above 70% thumbs up, for example. So I think any organization can do tweaks here and there to increase volumes. It could be removing the phone number. It could be making mail as a channel less available. So to me, that wouldn't be the KPI that really stands out to measure the successful outcome of the project. But then once you have a solution that's up to a certain level in terms of what you want to achieve with it, then you should start measuring the volumes or the impact you get from it. So I think it's the second step and not the first.
From my view, from conversation design, I think it's very valuable because it helps you understand the customer's whole journey as a context. I mean, what kind of mindset might customer be in at that point when they're expressing whatever it is that they want? So, you know, in terms of a touch point, for insurance kind of perspective, a claim, how would any of us feel, I suppose, if we just crashed our car and we had to make an insurance claim? So with a touch point in that kind of perspective, I think it's very valuable for a conversation designer, because then from there we can kind of, you know, create our language in terms of how we're going to empathise with the customer if needs be, or how we're going to guide the customer, you know, or even the case of, is there a need for a chatbot? You know, is it an extreme measure of bereavement, for example, whereby maybe a chatbot isn't the best thing for that and they need to speak to a human. So it'll help drive that decision as well, I suppose, you know, some of the things that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think Halvard's right. It's part of the evaluation mix. It's not the be-all and end-all, but it's a key part of the evaluation process. And I think Ben's also correct, because it's our interaction with the customer. So we need to understand that. We need to understand the language they're using. We need to understand the types of interactions they're having with us. We need to know that we're resolving their intents and the interests they have with using the chatbots in the first instance. But I think the level of importance depends on the organisation itself, and it depends, like Halvard said, on the KPIs that they've set. So for instance, if those KPIs are really about resolution, are really about those touch points, then yes, it's really important. If it's just about sales, then obviously not as important. So it depends on the organisation, depends on the way they've managed the outcomes and the KPIs as a result of those different outcomes.
Yeah, so all of you are correct. So basically the touch points, so either social media or human interaction or directly all the conversations, basically email, voice, and everything, all of those will be needed to be checked and a quality check over, and then you will see basically how the interaction was with the customer, and all those human touch points are really necessary for the bot, and afterwards also for the analysis and also for all the KPIs that will follow afterwards. Okay, so we can go to the next question. So setting realistic goals and defining the purpose of conversational AI in your company. So how is it done? Richard, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think this is crucial. I think if anyone's designing a chatbot or any form of conversational AI, really need to have an evaluation plan. You need to understand what the outcomes are. Without that goal setting, how do we measure success of the chatbot? You know, there's no other way of really measuring that success, and then be able to keep an eye on it, monitor it, and then make changes depending on what the data is giving us. So I think it's a crucial part of the process, really.
Yeah, as you just said, it is a crucial part. I think also bear in mind, personally, I wouldn't strive for perfection off the off. You know, what's your MVP? What's your goals from the off? And then how you can iterate and improve on that. So, you know, we had a bot recently whereby we're in the process of building one whereby we're going, right, what is our MVP fallback rate, for example, you know? And for us at the moment, when we first, you know, we're going off past experiences, and when we first launched one before, you know, the first one, there was like 72% match rate, which, all right, that's not great, but then we've iterated on it now, and now we're way over 90. So, you know, it's having that MVP in mind first, and then the goal where you want to get to.
I work in CS, so I often get questions from the sales side, like what can we promise to our customers, like what kind of KPIs can we commit to, and where should we put the targets? And for me, that's quite a general question. Like you need to start off with asking the organization, like, where are they at in their digitalization journey? Like what is this organization trying to achieve? And I think we had a fantastic presentation just now with someone who's targetedly gone into both create automation of specific user journeys, but also to to actually go in and create a voice solution to generate pipeline, to generate sales. And I think that's the question you should be asking specifically to an organization is, what kind of initiatives are you looking to do? Like, is this an organization that's looking at the channel mix and has identified that actually for us, mail is too big of a channel. We've identified that we're spending too much money on handling inquiries coming in through mail. Okay, well, what can we do about that using this technology? How can we be part of some type of larger scale initiative like that? Maybe we have phone queues that are 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes too long. Okay, how can we use a voice solution to be part of that, to take away some of that queue? Can we install a soft launch like you talked about, where you get not all incoming phone calls into the voice solution, but maybe when people are in queue, can we then offer it to them? Okay, what kind of impact can we have specifically towards that? And I think that's when large organizations fully get value out of conversational AI, is when a conversational AI platform becomes one component in a larger scale strategic initiative for that customer. So to me, like, we can, and I say this to the internal sales team as well, surely we can give some kind of KPI. You can automate this percentage of traffic coming into the virtual agent, but really what you should be asking is, what do you want to achieve, and how can we become one component in that strategic shift?
Yeah, thank you all. So basically also from the presentation before was really interesting that first we need to identify the problems. So as you may know, we need to discuss with the business, but also understand what the clients really need, the end user, because basically they will be the one that will use our product. And then we need to define the SMART goals in order to see, okay, how can be achieved, and then basically count all the solution development in place, and we need to start building the board in order to make the customer needs. And then to also have developed a plan that, okay, now we are here, we're adding one use case and then another one, and then basically how will be the vision and where will this board go. And in the end, setting realistic goals is really important, but usually we should start small and then go big, because also if we set too many goals or too many ambitious goals from first day, then we'll be a little bit disappointing as well at the end that we were not meeting them. So it's always good to have a mixture, and those goals to be smart and then to be achievable in that specific time frame. And as Ben mentioned, as the others, we need to have also the vision in the end. So the last goal, the end goal, that will be for that board. Okay, then let's go to the third question. How would you know if the conversational AI chatbot is working the way you designed it, and how you define the success of the initiative? All right, or Ben?
Yeah. So basically how we do it is literally we look at the journeys. We look at the data, we look at a customer's journey through a certain flow. We gather that data. Is there any pain points? Is there anything that we haven't accounted for? Within that, and take our learnings from there. I suppose it's basically drilling down into the data or the conversation. For each customer, we'll go away, analyse, go through our findings, and basically understand whether the bot journey is working or not. We tend to do our reviews every 4 to 6 weeks after, for example, a new change has gone live within a flow. So if we've updated an existing flow, how has that changed? We wait for time to gather the data. And unless there's any immediate feedback from customers or the agents saying, look, this ain't working, you need to sort it out. Then we roll back, obviously. But ultimately, in terms of knowing whether it's working, is analysing the data, listening to customers, and listening to your agent.
Yeah, that's pretty much got it there. But I think the key first point is understanding what those outcomes are, setting very clear, achievable outcomes, and then having KPIs which align exactly to those different outcomes as well. And then once you've got the KPIs, you know what types of data you need to collect, and obviously you're going to use the chatbot data that's coming through to understand the interactions, evolve the chatbot based on that. But also there's other work to do, and I think we've heard a lot over the last few days, around collecting data through the chatbot, but also there's additional research that can take place, and often that gives us really useful insights about people's understanding of the chatbot, relationship with it, but also how successful they found it. So for instance, if we're using a chatbot, we might actually get to the end point, we might purchase a product, we might have a good completed service, but we might not know how that person is actually feeling about it until we actually speak to them and ask them what their experience was like. So it's really important, as Ben mentioned, to kind of do that additional user research to get a good understanding of what the chatbot does, how people relate to it, but also how can we improve it in future. I think that is exactly where a lot of people are at the moment. How can we go to that next level? ChatGPT's there. How can we potentially leverage that to create much better customer experience? And I think from doing that initial research is a really important way to do that.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned ChatGPT and LLMs, because like I was actually planning to say exactly the same that you guys were saying. Like there is so much data out there, so use it, analyze it, find out how the journeys that you've created are actually working, and if you need to go deeper, like if your ambition is to decrease deflection to a human being, like look at that specifically. Look at all the conversations that's being escalated to a human. Look at everyone asking specifically to talk to a human. Why are they asking that specific question? Very often you'll actually see that you've built journeys into the solution that's almost by design, pushing them to talk to a human being. Like it could be a fairly simple integration that you can put in place that can actually create fantastic user experiences. But and this integration may already exist as an easy API that you can integrate towards, because the organization that you're working in has already automated that on the homepage, right? Those type of setups. So I think there is so much to be gained from just doing proper data analysis. But what I was going to say about LLMs is that actually last week I walked past tech, and this one guy called me in and he said, check this out, Halvard, because I know you're doing all this data analysis for your customers, but actually I built this out with ChatGPT, and he just showed me how he sent in non-real chat logs, and he asked ChatGPT, is this conversation automated? Was it escalated to a human being? La 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 la, like all of these manual work tasks that you have people sitting down doing. And you can actually get extremely precise predictions on that, like on the level of human beings. So very soon you can get that data straight into LLMs, and you get reports back out that tells you like the reason why you have such high escalation to human beings is because of this and this, right? So it's hugely fascinating to see how you can use that type of technology to automate a lot of the work that I would guess people don't enjoy doing that work. I don't know. What do you think? It's quite heavy workload, isn't it?
It is a heavy workload. But I suppose at the same time, I don't know, maybe from conversations I've said, it's kind of like, you like to know them quirks, you like to know where you were failing, the feedback that you could do, and if you could, the peer review of that, I suppose. But that is interesting,
But it's kind of nice as well, because you guys talked about earlier today about like upskilling technically, right? So the more support you get from technology to do that type of work, the more you can upskill people into like doing simple integrations or stuff like that can sort of enhance the solution further. So I don't think it's taking away work, it's more adding to it and giving you tools to get better strategic decisions about how to take the product onwards.
Very interesting. So the goal, to use more and more OpenAI. I think this will be, but also designers. So basically, us human that actually have knowledge on development or conversational AI will also be needed in there. So it won't be only bots building everything and so on. We will still be here to say so. So in the end, how to measure success, and basically it's all of this. So having the goals, completion rate, accuracy, or hand over to human basically for that, or to measure also the abort part on basically where the customer ends, where the customer just drops and does not continue. Why does it happen that? And also looking over all those customer feedback and trying to understand and using basically all the tools like you mentioned to have basically afterwards the designers more focus on complex tasks. And in the end, basically the bot journey never ends. You will need to start growing that and making basically the bot a little bit more skilled and going to the next level. So this journey will never end for the bot. It will just continue growing. Yeah. Anything more to add? No? Okay, then what about quantitative and qualitative KPIs? What do you think about this? The version, so which one is better?
I think it's a mix. I think we've already touched on it to an extent. So obviously, the quantitative data is really important, particularly with the KPIs, so we can measure those different metrics through the bot performance and customer interactions. But also, it's really important to understand the story behind the data, behind the quantitative data, and that's where the qualitative really comes in. It tells the story of how the chatbot's working, how it's operating, what's working, what isn't, and how it can be improved. And I think that data is equally as important as the quant data. So, and also looking at forward thinking, looking at building out, we really need that level of qualitative data to help us to understand where to build out, how to build out, and make it user friendly and relate to people's experience in the real world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. From my perspective, it tends to be that you kind of reserve your quantitative data, if you will, for high-level external stakeholders and stuff to explain, like, wow, look what the bot's doing here, or yes, no, we failed on here. But then it's the qualitative data that you drive into, or you dive into, I should say, and to really understand, like you said, understand the journey and how you can improve, essentially, because you need that story behind it to understand, where you're going wrong, or in fact, where it's going right. Sometimes it's in terms of more points so that you can celebrate the success, obviously, but explain, the successes you've had to your stakeholders to go, but we've succeeded here, and now so we're going to apply this to here. So, yeah,
it's kind of a resource question as well, though, like, because you have all this data in front of you that's easily absorbable. And it's more quantitative than qualitative. So to me, it's a little bit about like how much people can you put into it. And I think one thing that we've done quite a lot of is through collaboration with research organizations to attach them to customer relationships. And this way, you have a research organization get access to real data used by a real organization who they then get funding to work with, and our customers have been welcoming them with open arms, because they go in and they do in-depth interviews with their customers, trying to understand like what went wrong here, like was this a good point in the user journey to escalate to a human being, and then if no, why not? So I think it's a lot about like, what do we have time to do? Yeah. But there is no doubt that you can get so much information from sitting down with real users and asking them like, how does this feel to you? Like it's.
I think NPS, from a chatbot perspective, NPS surveys at the end, I think they help a lot. But the solution that Ross presented was, like, to me, that was brilliant. Like, in terms of like, well, the customer's got to wait anyway, so why not just ask them how they feel about the whole thing? So you guys must get some great data from that, I suppose. So yeah, I think if the resource isn't, you still got to analyze the comments then, provided, and you're relying on customer to leave a comment, I suppose. So there's still that. There's still that resource question again.
But consider, like, that's not very well sorted data though, so you would have to have someone sit down and label it or create sense of it. So that's where you could actually add a research organization into that and say, listen, we have all this valuable data. make it make sense to us.
Yeah, it's very important also to have researchers and basically prototyping through our team and just collaborating with us and making sure that basically the bot, in the end, everybody wants a quality bot that basically brings value to the customer and so on. Can have 2 or 3 use cases, but if it's really good, then makes our best out of it. And once we start adding more and more use cases, we need to make sure that quality does not drop. Because if it drops, then of course we'll get bad customer feedback, and then we will need to analyze and see why does it happen, how we can improve, and what we can do basically to not have that again. So having researchers in place in our team, I think, is always a benefit, and we should do that more often, I think. Okay. Then the last question that we have, do the success metrics of conversational AI change as the solution business needs scales?
Want me to go first? So I think that the high-level perspectives won't change that much. Like you have this technology because you want to achieve cost efficiency or automation. You want to create upsell, or you want to improve CSATs. But I think the focus will change over time, if that makes sense. So perhaps you have had this initially this focus of reducing mail as a channel. Then perhaps that will be sort of connected to a chatbot project. But then over time you may see that actually if we're looking at our channel mix, we can see that now 60-70% of it is directed towards phone. We've done a good job of sort of getting the quick wins from the mails, from the human chats today. Then maybe the focus should move a little bit over towards automating phone conversations, right? So the high-level KPIs will most likely be the same, but then if you're drilling down a little bit in terms of what's the strategic focus of this specific organization, I think that's going to naturally evolve over time as you develop the solution.
Yeah, I agree. I suppose does the goal of the bot that you design and change as well with it. So like you mentioned about going from, if you are trying to target a certain channel to either deflect from or deflect to, so you might be saying like, I want to deflect from phone to self-serve. Okay, that's great. And then it's kind of right, like you mentioned, we've kind of accomplished a reasonable target here now. What's the next stage? Where if they can't do the self-serve, do we want to deflect them somewhere else? And like, do you have an app, or do you have a messaging on a channel, or things like that? And then you mentioned automation of them journeys. How much are you able to automate? It could be other different targets. It's a case of okay, customers are enabled to self-serve, but we want to reduce the time the agents are taking to the deal. So can you info gather? Can you do maybe data protection or something like that to take the time away? So I think your targets. I think, like you mentioned, in terms of interactions and fallback rates and things like that, high level, yes, they'll be exactly the same, and it's the lower level when in terms of the detail stuff that will always change. And constantly change, because your program will constantly change with it. It's never stopping, is it? It's never finishing. It's always something new, or something more to automate, or something else to make the customer journey better, and that's where it all comes from.
And then from an insurance point of view, there's probably a sweet spot even in terms of automation, right?
Yes.
You have so many valuable incoming inquiries, so there's probably like this certain level you want to be at, and then if you go above that, that's going to create bad user experiences, or you're going to lose out on potential upsale, those type of aspects. Yeah,
that's correct, because let's be honest, insurance is a begrudging buy, isn't it? It's one of them ones where people go, I have to buy my insurance every year. Well, for car insurance, that is anyway. So it is, like you said, there is that sweet spot of how do we appease the customer journey, how do we make it sleeker, how do we make it better, how do we make it easier for them, but at the same time then leveraging that to go, right, we offer something else, do you know what I mean? So it's kind of making their journey so easy that actually they're happy to do this again, and you can upsell, like you said, more products as well, but not just putting a bot or something there for the sake of it, just to drive interaction away from something. We should service the customer how they wish to be serviced, because that way then they'll be happier. Essentially.
I think the decision whether to change your KPIs should actually come from the KPIs themselves. So obviously if you've got a good kind of monitoring framework, you've got a good range of outcomes around that, and you understand that certain things have been successful, certain things haven't, then that might be a rationale for kind of deciding to then change the KPIs, therefore adapting the approach in the future. Like Halvard said, the high level KPIs might not change. If everything's going according to plan, those KPIs are giving the data you need, they're taking the bot in the right direction, then they should stay the same. But I suppose there's also an argument in terms of trying to develop the chatbot and looking at maybe adding new outcomes and new KPIs each year to try and test it and to try and give it kind of a roadmap to improve the progression of the chatbot. So that could be another reason for wanting to actually adapt the KPIs or change or add new ones, depending on the success of where it's potentially going to lead over the next few years.
Yeah. On our side, basically, the most bots that we build first is basically to have less human contact, basically for the bots to just handle repetitive tasks or repetitive use cases directly to APIs and then pull data or push data and so on. And basically this are the first use cases and also basically the first KPIs that we built on that. But then we saw, okay, it's important also the customer feedback, and then basically the focus moved. Okay, we need to make sure that customers stay with us, we understand basically their needs, and also maybe some other potential use cases that are added. So as you mentioned, once adding more and more use cases on the bot, then of course the KPIs will change. So the business cares, the bot cares, so all the metrics needs to scale with it. We cannot keep basically the KPIs from previous year to basically what is in the current year. So always we need to have a balance and also to keep track of everything and to make sure that it's always important. And yeah, in insurance, I don't think we can go with this without it. So even that we want to skip it, but always to have in mind this that the KPIs is also scaling as the business scales always. Okay, do you have some questions from your side?
Actually, I have a general question, that's okay. As you mentioned, the ChatGPT and everything else, it's more like a solution, it's not a rule and everything. Where do you think that would leave UI, UX designers, and even engineers in the future? I mean, if you put a code there and it will just, and it asks you what is the bug, and you get it out for you. Sorry.
Yeah, I can go first. So basically, the developer role or the designer role won't go away. So yes, ChatGPT can help in a specific way and basically move some points, but the complex things will never be done by OpenAI, at least so far for the moment. Because, for example, all the complex things is also to understand basically what the business needs. So always having a human contact with basically the business, but also with the clients, the end users, this is basically what we need to understand. And then we build use cases on top of it. Of course, with all the tools that are available. So for sure, the bots can have direct integration with OpenAI to have summarization or sentiment analysis and so on, that basically the bot can also use very happily into basically his conversation, or to reprompt basically the conversation based on the customer input. So if a customer comes in, hey, my cat died, I need something to do, for example. Okay, then the bot can actually help and a little have a human contact or natural human contact with the user, and then go further. So basically to have the reprompt based on the user input, and then have more a human-like conversation directly through the way. What do you guys think?
I think that from a design perspective, there could be an argument made that a conversation designer will be more curating the conversations rather than creating them. However, my personal view is that, I mean, where's the pride you're going to get, or recognition you're going to get? Not recognition, pride and kind of sense of achievement in the fact that there's some amazing chatbots out there and voice bots, some which are on display today and have been displayed already. So, that, some really good work by some really good conversation designers. And if you've got a bot doing that, I understand from a business perspective of, it's sleeker, it's easier, it's cost effective, but I don't know, would you go and listen to a ChatGPT in concert? Do you, I know it's a kind of the, varying differences of what the work that I do compared to someone like Madonna or something. But I suppose the concept is the same, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? There's still a creation element, an ethical element of should it kind of do that work. But I think it is leaning towards a more curating role rather than a creative role. Yeah, that's just my view. Sorry.
I can go. So I think the stage we're in today is still fairly early. So I think what you're seeing this technology do today is going to be almost frowned upon in 1 year's time. And I think it's truly fascinating to see how you can use this technology and incorporate it in so many different technologies. So as an example, for AI trainer, conversation design type of roles, I think within a very short matter of time, those roles are going to evolve into supervisor or quality assurance roles, where you can get full virtual agent solutions created by LLMs, and you'll have humans who can go in and control this is the right information. You create risk-reducing technology that you put on top that links this technology in towards your space, and then you put an element of sort of human supervision on top of it. And that's only talking about like AI training and content design. But within a very short matter of time, you can, as a AI trainer or a conversation designer, say, I want this API integration. And you'll have LLMs creating that for you by giving it specifications. And then you need AI trainers and conversation designers to upskill, for example, on JSON, so that they can go in and quality assure it, that they can tweak certain parameters of it. But in reality, we're going to see smaller AI trainer teams performing much higher business impact very, very soon. So I think getting your teams into a position where you can upskill technically is going to be hugely beneficial. But also thinking about like what's the true value of these teams? How do we get them to think about user experience, to think about business outcomes, and less about like the more manual repetitive work we do today. I think we're going to see less and less of it, and then eventually it's going to be just a minor fraction. So I think I really like what you said earlier today about having the service centers team recruited internally into such teams, because they understand the struggles of your customers and how to help them.
Yeah, I think both exactly right, and I think the main change, and whenever you get a technological development like this, it will lead to new types of roles. I mean, it's very difficult to understand what that will look like in the next 5 years. But I think for me, it'll be around managing complexity, because potentially, in the next few years, we're going to have chatbots. And at the moment, we're still working with quite straightforward use cases in most of the time. We're going to have much more complex use cases. We're going to have bots which are connecting to each other, across domains, across businesses, across into health, into well-being. So it's going to be a huge ecosystem, and it needs humans to be able to understand it, manage it, and supervise it. So I think the roles will look very different over the next few years, but it's still going to be an important role for humans as part of it.
Hello. Hi, thank you all for all the good questions and discussions. My next question is directly to Richard in Maine, specifically for your research around social implications. So I'm going to stretch a little bit the measuring success topic here and think about, we live close to a world where the technology is actually becoming not just good, really good. So we have applications like Snapchat, where one of the chat bot is helping a lot of people to talk, but it has some social implications because they are making less friends. Same, there are a lot of startups looking into dating conversational coaching. So obviously, a lot of these implementations are doing wonders on their internal KPIs, but there are some social KPIs related to that. So I was wondering if you have some thoughts about, how should I think about quantifying the side impact, if you like.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm doing a talk on this tomorrow and touching on that at the moment, because what I'm trying to get across to people is that we can actually build this into chatbots, so we can build well-being into our chatbots across all sectors really, because we all have kind of barriers which prevent us from engaging with a service or buying a product, and a lot of those can be around mental health or psychological or just opportunities, lack of money. But we can actually, within the chatbots now, and this level of complexity will start to come in, I think, over the next 5 years, is provide support to people, because previously companies wouldn't be able to, they won't have the resource to provide that support, human support to people. Because we're automating this through our solutions that we're providing, we can build in wellbeing capabilities to provide support in various different areas. So, for instance, insurance is lots of different potential ways, in health, financial, lots of different ways that we can provide support to people. So I think this is kind of a new area that will start to develop, and chatbots will be providing that support within them, but also helping people to get away from the technology as well. So providing support and say, look, you need to get outside, you need to do your exercise, you need to stay healthy, because young people growing up today will be operating in a very different world to what I did when I was a young person. So they almost need reminding, they need support to be able to access those other opportunities that we've all had the opportunity to take part in when we were young people. So I think it's maybe,
seeing this as like a new set of AI ethics guidelines?
I think so, yeah, and I think we're very much focused on the immediate use cases, the business use cases at the moment. I think once we've solved those, then this will be the next step for those, and hopefully the regulation will help there. But I think ideally it comes from a consumer perspective, but also from a business perspective, that businesses want to do this because they want them to engage with their services, but also we've got happier people, then they're more likely to be more productive, more likely to earn more, and potentially then that benefits everyone in that sense.
I was just going to say, I suppose as humans, though, we're social creatures naturally anyway.
Yeah.
So there might be that almost longing for connection, I believe anyway with another human, rather than, I'd like to believe anyway, with a bot, so to speak. Like I'm dad of three girls, and that kind of thing of them wanting to speak to a bot more than myself kind of frightens me, kind of thing. But yeah, I think as humans we are naturally social creatures anyway. So I would hope and like to think that would outweigh, I suppose, the social kind of ethical part of this need for wanting to speak to a chat.
Yeah. Okay, can I sneak in one comment regarding the social impact? So this might be a little bit of a Nordic phenomenon, but I would guess it's fairly global. The social systems are built in a complex way, so that when researchers looked at it, they figure out that it was so difficult to really understand how to get, for example, social benefits or support from public organizations, that the people who actually were able to do so were on average on such a strong competence level that it sort of harmed the lower competence people's ability to get help from social services. So this is something that's being looked at quite widely in Nordic public sector, is how do you make information more available and easier to interpret and understand. And in the future, we believe that people should be getting support based on very rigid sets of systems, based on the situation they're in, and not based on their ability to interpret systems and and find the best solutions for themselves. So that's sort of one aspect where I think AI will have a massively positive social impact.
Very interesting discussion. We have time for one more question.
Hi, thank you for the panel. My question is a little bit related with you have already discussed, but I just wanted to get your views on the combination of business success metrics versus customer success metrics, because I have seen cases where a customer may be in a sales journey with the chatbot. They are doing the whole sales journey perfectly fine, so they get to buy what they wanted, and it was quick, it was fine. But then when they have to deliver the, what is the customer metrics, the NPS score, whatever, they will penalize that, so they will give like a low score in that, and we might think it could be, maybe lack of trust in the channel, things like that. So what are your views on, this combination of metrics?
I suppose for me, based on like that example, the things that you've looked at is there anything we can do to change the customer's mind in the first place? Do you know what I mean? It might be, like you said, trust, or there might be a thing of they just didn't like the layout of it. Do you know what I mean? What was their whole journey rather than just their interaction with the chatbot? Do you know what I mean? Are they scoring the chatbot low when really it was something to do with not being able to add an additional extra, for example, onto the wherever they purchase it? Is it how the question is worded within the survey itself? Do you know what I mean? Is it clearer that 1 is low and 5 is high? Do you know what I mean? And that kind of thing. And then, ultimately, as what I talked about earlier, is the customer is king. So we are, from my perspective, it's customer, and they pay our wages ultimately to do the job that we want to do better for them and make them a better journey. So we have to listen to their feedback essentially and report that back. So for example, if someone came to me and went, Ben, want a chatbot do X, Y, Z, okay, no problem, we'll get this done, goes live, review it, and it's, we looking at the journey, it looks great, but customers are scoring terrible, and we'd go back and say, look, I know it is working, but customers don't like it. So personally, I would then go to them and go, you might want to take this offline, you know what I mean, and go back to the, roll it back. But if that decision's taken on my hands, then I can only report what I can report, I suppose.
Yeah, but CSAT should be a business outcome, though. Like it should be the most critical business outcome of investing into technology like that. And if you're automating on the expense of CSAT or NPS or whatever you're measuring, then you're doing it wrong. So I think the cost of automating on the expense of NPS or CSAT is just much higher than what you're saving. So that would be a huge mistake. I think the number one mistake that you can do in terms of setting up a virtual agent is to not have a good handover to a human being, because research is showing that most people can accept chatting to a virtual agent, not getting the right user experience, then straight away being handed over to a human being to get a good service. What they absolutely can't accept is writing to a VA, getting a poor answer, and then that's it, or there's some type of loop. And also, there's a fantastic opportunity here in terms of customer satisfaction, and that was demonstrated live in the voice call. And it's people have low expectation to technology like this. So if you can positively surprise them, CSAT is going to go through the roof. And it doesn't need to be as impressive as this. It could be as easy as just end-to-end automation in the VA. They will give you 9 to 10 out of 10 on the ratings. So if you manage to positively surprise them, it should be driving CSAT and never at the expense of CSAT. And then the initiative is failed from.
Do you think there's less opportunity to positively be surprised now because of ChatGPT and Bard and the likes?
Increasingly so.
Yeah.
So always customer first. We need to understand, and basically if the customer leaves, for example, okay, the process was good, was 8 out of 10, but then gives a feedback, okay, maybe some parts are missing, or if he expected something else, then we can have basically this outbound outbound calling or human afterwards interaction, and then go back to the customer and understand why basically the feedback was given like this, and basically to include that into the KPIs, because yeah, in the end there are business needs, KPIs that are in place, but basically out of that business are the customers, and we need to understand and then basically build on top of this, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I don't think I can add much else from what you said really. I think there should be an aim to try and align the business and customer objectives as closer together. And sometimes it's not always possible, but you know, I think the closer they are, the better outcome for both, really.
Yeah. Thank you all for the participation and hope you enjoyed it.